Hi everyone, Molton here. Welcome back to another game in our speedrun series. And we are nearing the 1500 level mark, which is usually where everyone starts to hit a plateau. So again, we got a Pirc defense. So we start out with our standard d6 and knight f6 move order. Here knight c3 from white, we play the move pawn to g6. Followed by the move bishop to g7. Again, with this bishop to c4 move, we've seen in a previous video that we have very common motif of knight takes e4 in a lot of positions. It might have also been possible to play knight takes e4 on the previous move, but I wanted to save the extra tempo to develop my bishop first, and then generally black wants to get the king castled. So I can castle the king here straight away and leave this option of knight takes e4 open. We did see in one game, I think white played the move pawn to e5. So we can go for knight takes e4 straight away here, allowing bishop takes f7, king takes. And then we can do this thing called, I guess, artificially castling with the king, where we sort of bring the rook across to f8 and the king can just slide back to the g8 square. So that's a possibility. And we also have castles. If e5, we go into a very similar position to what we've played previously. So both good options. I'm going to go for knight takes e4 just because I want to highlight this sort of artificial castles type of idea. So here if knight takes, then again our idea is to play pawn to d5. And we recover back the sacrificed piece. And if bishop takes f7, we're just going to take back with the king. Knight takes e4, we will play the move rook to f8 and then bring the king back here to g8. So this is a very useful idea in a lot of positions where you find your king sort of stuck on f7. You can castle by hand. And in return, we get the bishop pair, but we do have some weaknesses in our position, so we do need to be a little bit careful here. So like e6 is weak, and also now our opponent is directly attacking us, so this can be a little bit scary. So you have to play a little bit accurately here, but I should be okay if I just move my king back. I think I don't see any real follow-up for white right now. Also, having the bishop pair is very, very helpful because the light squared bishop covers a lot of important squares around our king. This also moves away from any possible checks from the knight, so it's a very useful move. If h5 here, we can consider taking it and then maybe bringing our bishop to either g6 or g4 just to chase away the rook. Also, the bishop protects the king very, very well from these squares. Okay, now knight to g5. So when the knights get too close to the king like this, I just like to chase them away. So I'm immediately thinking about playing the move pawn to h6. I assume that white is going to play the move pawn to h5 and try to keep the pressure up. And I mean, these positions can be a little bit scary, so you do need to be a little bit careful here. Our options are, I would say this, maybe try to go for counterplay with knight c6, attacking the pawn on d4. If we play the bishop to f5, I'm afraid that we might just get kicked away with the move pawn to g4, but at the same time pawn to g4 weakens white's king quite a bit. So there is a serious downside to the move pawn to g4. So because I think g4 weakens white's position quite a bit, I'm actually going to go with this move pawn to bishop to f5, and if pawn to g4, I'm just going to take the knight and try to say that, I mean, white has weakened the king a lot and I'm trying to get some counterplay out of it. At the same time, this bishop on f5 is very handy because it protects g6 in a lot of positions. Okay, now after this move, I suppose I can take it, and the bishop will protect this pawn on h7 in a lot of positions. Also, it gives a square to avoid g4, so I'm thinking we take here. We could also maybe play h6, but h6, I think after white captures, we capture the knight, then this queen might swing out to h5, so we don't want any sort of squares for the queen to come out to. Although actually if we take, the queen can actually take as well. But then maybe we can play queen e8, offer a trade of queens. It's a little bit scary to allow the queen to get to this square, but it might be okay. What other options do we have? Could play knight to c6, but then c3 comes. There's maybe queen to e8 as well. So the immediate threat might be knight takes h7. That's something I have to watch out for. But at the moment, knight takes h7, I can capture this knight on e4. So now I'm gonna go queen to e8. Not sure if this is the best move, but queen to e8. So at the moment, this bishop is attacking this knight on e4, so in a lot of positions, knight takes h7 isn't working. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this wasn't working because I just take the knight on e4, right? I mean, it looks tempting, this sort of sacrifice, but I feel like it's giving up a lot of pieces. And there's almost always a way for black to sort of survive this. We take with the queen. So if queen to g4 here, we can offer some trade of pieces. So when you're being attacked like this, the easiest way to remove a lot of the pressure is just to offer a lot of piece trades, especially considering I have the 2 pieces for rook now. And in most scenarios, the 2 pieces are going to be a lot more useful than the rook in most scenarios. So try to keep your rook whenever you can. Even if you get maybe 1 pawn for it, it's usually not worth it. Here I feel like black is okay now because I just play queen f5. If queen g4, this knight can come out to c6 at some moment. Also, if it gets really scary, then I can just offer a queen trade, maybe queen e4. So yeah, I feel like white's attack is running out of steam now because he needs to keep the queens on to maintain the pressure, but yeah, if he trades queens, then really there's nothing left for black here to worry about too much. Continue knight to d7 and then play the move pawn to e5. Now here, I probably don't want a bishop trade because I feel like my bishop can be very, very useful in the future. Also puts pressure on d4. So I'm just going to keep my bishop in this case. Avoid the trade. If I trade bishops, also I let the rook get into the game. So I keep the bishops on the board and I'll play this move pawn to e5 to attack the center. If takes, we go knight takes. The knight's looking for the d3 square then. So it brings the bishop back to e3. This makes a lot of sense. Okay. Well, I'm just going to take it. If bishop takes, I think I can go bishop to g5 check, which can be very, very annoying because now if our opponent goes bishop to e3, which is the only move, then I can simply just take and then get into this endgame where it should be very, very good for me because the pawn structure is broken up. So this gives me very, very good chances of picking off some of these weakened pawns. So I can play my knight to one of these squares. I'll play my knight to e5, centralize this knight. The rook can come to e8 next. So when you're playing these sort of endgames, if your opponent gives you opportunities to sort of split up their pawn chain and weaken their pawn structure, then that's something you can definitely look out to do. The king does look weak, but there's a lot of squares here I have to defend with, so it should be fine. Now I have this move knight to d3, which I think picks up the pawn on b2. So that should be good for me. Do I have anything better than that? The rook is coming here, but I mean, worst case scenario, I can move my king up to g7 and it should be fine. And I don't see anything particularly wrong with knight to d3 check. So we go knight to d3. The idea is that if the king goes to any of these two squares, then I have discovered checks from my bishop, so I'll probably just move my knight attacking the rook. Likewise here, I can move my knight, attack the rook, and then maybe drop the knight back here to c4 with check. So king moves again, so I have to watch out for this one check. That's the only problem, but I can play the move king to g7, which prevents the rook from checking here. The rook also can't go to h5 because bishop g4 check would pick up the rook. Yep, so we have this move. I could protect my knight with the move pawn to b5. I think I'll do that because the knight's on a really, really good square here. I don't really want to move the piece away. If you have a piece on a really, really strong square, try to maintain it there. So protect it with the pawn, and I can further cement it in a6 if I need to. Okay, e4. I can play the move rook to e8 here, I believe. Just putting pressure on e4, also using this pin. Here, I can just go bishop takes e4 in this position, because I actually have this tactic of knight to d2. So always be on the lookout for these sort of tactics to just pick up some extra material. Then knight to d2 here picks up the rook and simplifies the position at the same time. Okay, so let's have a look at that game. So we came under quite a lot of pressure actually. So after this move, bishop takes f7. So maybe instead of knight takes e4, in hindsight, maybe it would have been easier if I just castled and then not have gone into all this if I wanted to avoid the attack, and I should be fine in this position. I mean, white can avoid the tactic by playing bishop to b3. That's the only thing, but I mean, position should be fine. We can continue with lots of moves like bishop g4, or maybe even look to play c5. There's this very common idea where you go c5, pawn takes, and then throw in queen a5 to pick up the pawn on c5 using the pin. So if white captures again, then you have this in between move, knight takes e4. So this is a sort of common theme in these type of positions. Here I didn't like it that much. That's why I went for knight takes e4, which should be fine as well. Takes, 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 and then we played the move rook to f8 and h4. It's actually the best move by the computer in this position, h4. Immediately trying to put pressure. It makes a lot of sense as well. If our opponent doesn't play h4, then if he just gives us time to consolidate, move our king away, then develop our bishop somewhere and start moving our knights into the game and playing e5, then there's not much left to worry about. So h4 is a very very good move to put immediate pressure on black. Now after move king g8, h5 is a move, as well as knight to g5. So actually the ancient doesn't like this move knight to g5 at all. Wants to go h5 immediately, but then after queen e8, yeah, position is still with chances for both sides. But after the move knight to g5, it really dislikes this move. It's just saying h6 in this position, and it should be fine. If white plays the move pawn to h5, then apparently we can just take the knight in this position. And after pawn takes, we have this very useful g4, which I didn't spot in the game. They're just blocking the queen from getting to h5. So yeah, so if we spotted this, then we would have seen that there's really no more attack here for white. So it does look a little bit scary, the bishop coming to h6, but just have to trust that after queen e8, that black's pieces are coming into the defense just in time. So this would have been fine. Bishop to f5 is also okay. h5, queen to e8, knight takes h7. So it really doesn't like this move, knight takes h7, so it doesn't quite work. So yeah, try to value your pieces a bit more when you're attacking these type of positions. Often if you sacrifice too many pieces, especially for like one rook, then you'll find that your attack might lose a bit of initiative. So here white should have just played knight to g3, kept the pieces on, and maintained the pressure here. And we have a very tense game. I mean, black plays e6, but it's anyone's game at this point. And the attack still looks a little bit scary to deal with. But after the move knight takes h7, I can even go king takes h7, but I thought this was simpler. And here there shouldn't be much else for white. So here's a matter of consolidation for black. So you just want to get rid of all white's most dangerous pieces, and queen f5 does a good job of doing that. And now the pieces should be much better than the rook. So in this position, have a lot of moves. I took here because I thought after bishop takes, bishop g5 check, that I could break up white's pawn structure and would make it a lot easier for me to pick up the pawns in general. That's why I captured, and yeah, now it should be clearly winning for black at this point in time. So I hope you enjoyed this game. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the next speedrun.